Hey guys, welcome to GS Fishing. Today is going to be a massive 2-week tackle dump, and I've spent the last couple of weeks thinking about the strategy on this lake that I've been fishing in late spring through spawn through basically early summer, and it's been absolutely challenging. Physically, it's not that big of a lake, but it's got really big drop-offs, it's got shallows, it's got weeds, it's got laid down trees, it's got all of that stuff, and then it's got these drop-offs that go very quickly down to like 20 feet, and then it just kind of shelves off, and there's parts that go all the way down to 60 feet. So I've seen them in the shallows, I've seen them breaching, like biggies, you know, like 2.5 to 4 pounders. I know that they're there. I've seen the big ones on the fish finders, and they're down like around 35, 40 feet in schools. So they're all over the place, and I just really need to crack the nut on this thing. So I spent like the last 2 weeks thinking about how I'm gonna attack this thing for the next couple of days, which it's gonna be very hot, it's gonna be muggy, it's gonna be a mix of sun, overcast, there should be some shadow play. It should be a great weekend, and the temperatures are gonna be up in the 90s, so I think the fish are gonna be super aggressive. So that's the setup for this. The other thing I want to talk about is that I've gotten out of the sport, I got back into it, and now I have to rebuild all of my tackle. So what I'm doing here is kind of showing you guys what I picked up over the last 2 weeks, and then I will go out, do a GoPro video, show you guys the highlights from the weekend, maybe the lowlights, and figure out what works, what doesn't work, stuff like that. I'll be putting links to the descriptions of all of everything you see here in this video, and we'll be going out from there. So that's it. Let's take a look at what I picked up. So I'm going to be working basically from the shores out. And this is going to be primarily targeting for shallow stuff, probably out into crankbait down to that 10-foot range or so is what I'm thinking about in this particular tackle dump, and we'll just go from there. So first thing, let's talk about the shallows. So I want to do some Tokyo rigs this weekend, and if you're not familiar with Tokyo rigs, they're basically a drop shot, but instead of really long weight on the bottom, you've basically got a fixed wire that comes down, and you put something like a tungsten bullet weight on it, and I've got a couple of them here in 3/8. Obviously, you can have the traditional lead ones. I went with the tungsten. They're a little smaller, and they give you a little bit more weight, so they just kind of blend in just a little bit more. I went with 2 colors here in this 3/8. I've got both green pumpkin and then black. So let's talk about the Tokyo rigs themselves. If you're not familiar with them, VMC makes them. You can have them pre-made. They're just one of the companies, but I basically went out and I bought the entire set of everything here, and they have a couple of different versions. They have the normal HD worm, they have a flipping rig, and then they got a wide gap series. So you can really set up weedless, you can set it like a Texas, and then you got this little wire that comes down. And if you haven't seen them, they look like this. So here's the wire that comes down. Essentially what you do is you reverse this tungsten weight on there. So if I do it to the camera here, you guys can see it. You basically thread it back up under there, and where the curvature of the bullet weight is you basically take your pliers and you create an R hook on there, and it lets it kind of slide up and down, but it retains it on there as a retention mechanism. And so you drop this on there, and then you put your plastic, and it'll float, and you can get some action on it. So that's how these Tokyo rigs work. So these are the VMCs. This is the HD worm. I got 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, and 5/0, all 4 set here, so I'm good to go there. The other one, that's just a typical regular old straight shank. Then you can do the wide gaps. And I went 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, 5/0 in these as well. They come in 2 packs, and these are from VMC. And then there's another one, it's a flipping rig. So it's basically, it's set up just a little bit differently, has a little bit more action on it. You can see the HD flipping here. And I just went with the 3/0, 4/0, 5/0 in the flipping setup of the Tokyo rig. Also has that straight little metal shank that comes down. And I think they, what do they call it? They call it a bait holder. So nothing special fancy, but that little piece of metal wire right there is they call a bait holder. So went heavy on the Tokyo rigging this weekend. So I'll get to some of the plastics there. Other things that kind of along those lines of the shallow stuff, before I get into the fluke stuff, I also went with a couple other weed-friendly things for some weedless Texas sit-ups with some weighting on the front. I went with a couple of owners here. I've got darter type and bullet types with some regular old straight round hooks, and then I've got some offset hooks here, both on the smaller size. These are 1/0 here and 1/8 ounce, and then I got 2/0 and 1/4 ounce here. Those are from Owner. Next thing I went with is a Pepper Custom Baits. This one's called a penetrator. It's got a unique, it's like a shaky head. So it's got your eyelet down here in front. It's got some curvature. So what it allows you to do is it allows it, like a shaky head, it lets it sit right up. And this is great for your creature baits or your craws, stuff like that. These are in green pumpkin, and these are actually 3/8 of an ounce. So a nice medium weight. And you basically throw this down there, and you can kind of drag it along, pop it, flip it, all that kind of stuff with a shaky head kind of set up there. And that's from Pepper Custom Baits. And then I went with some Gamakatsus. If I want to do some Texas rigging down on the bottom here, I might also set these up with some flukes, and that's why I went with the super line. It's because they're a little heavier, they're heavier gauge. They allow you to, they're a little heavier, honestly, is what it is. So if you want to set them up and put flukes on these, you can do that too, and use them as a swim bait with your super flukes, stuff like that from Zoom. So there's some Gamakatsus. I got 3/0, 5/0 here. This is just surplus to stuff that I had before. All right, and then as far as other terminal stuff, if you want to consider it that, I need to pick up some Owner Stinger treble size 4s to replace some of the trebles on some of my crankbaits that have seemed to have just kind of gotten beat up a little bit here in the early goings of the season. So I've got some replacement 4s there from Owner. The next area before I transition right into a lot of the swim stuff is this jig head here, which is actually it's a reaction type head. And this one's kind of unique. It's kind of like a Tokyo, like a flipping rig, but it's got a football side. It's got a football head weight on the front, and then they put a wide gap hook on it. But it's got 2 eyelets, so it articulates. So if you think about it like a tractor trailer kind of a setup, these are great if you want to put a craw or some other creature type bait, maybe something like a sweet beaver or a smallie beaver, things like that, and really get this thing swinging. So the idea here is you drag this thing on the bottom, you bounce it, and you get this action and this tail going. So what I want to do with these on this weekend is get right up next to those weed lines in the shallows, or maybe right out even into the weeds and set this thing up weedless and kind of bounce these things in there and get these things going side to side and see if I can't draw some of those bass through the weeds, and rather than doing a topwater frog strategy or stuff like that. Really, it's just about hitting them from different angles, creating different presentations, stuff like that. You guys get it. So these are actually the Jean Larew. They're called the Biffle Hardheads. They've got Owner hooks on them, and I basically got the setup in these. I invested heavy in these as well. 3 sizes, 3/16, 5/16, and 7/16 as far as the weights. And they've all got Owner wide gap hooks on them, so quality stuff here, and these are from Jean Larew. I'll be putting the links to all of this stuff again in here, and while I'm doing this, quick reminder, like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified. I'll be doing a follow-up video on what stuff worked this weekend, what stuff didn't, or just my thoughts on it, so you'll want to tune into that. So, okay, so those were really the shallow stuff, down bouncing the ground, flipping, getting down and dirty. All right, so now let's talk about some of the areas where I want to hit some of the shallows and start drawing them out a little bit potentially, and I've got a bunch of swim jigs for that. So I invested in the whole setup here, these Picasso smart mouths. Picasso, they have these. You can either get them with Owner, Gamakatsu, or Mustads. These are all the Mustads. These are the smart mouth. They're like little shad. I've been seeing a lot of little shads and minnows in this particular area where I'm going to be doing a lot of this fishing off some of the docks. So I went with all sizes. These all have 5/0 Mustad hooks on them, but I've got 1/8 ounce, 16th ounce, and 1/4 ounce in each one of these. They're called the School E-rigs. So you get 5 of them each in here. They're basically just a nice swim jig for your swim trailers. Other swim bait jigs I picked up. I picked up VMC, these little bluegills here. These guys, they look like they have like 3/0 hooks on them. These are 1/8 ounce, excuse me. You get 3 of them here, and these are from VMC, little bluegills. Losing my ability to talk here. Next one, I went with a nice chartreuse color in case it starts getting a little murky. I've got the regular old Pro Boxer Series jigs on here in chartreuse. I'll figure out what I'll mate up to these, maybe a sexy shad, something shadish color, stuff like that. These obviously here are in a chartreuse color. Nice little realistic eyes on those. Next one, underspin. I picked up some D&L tackle last week, some larger size underspins. I went with a smaller one here. This one is actually a 3/8 ounce spin head. It's basically just got your white pearlescent head on it with a silver spinner on the underside. And this is from Strike King. It's the spin head. Told you guys, I picked up a lot of stuff this week, okay? All right, so before I get into the hard bait section, I'm just gonna go over some of the plastics I got too. Just got some regular old Yamasenko, some 4-inch and 5-inch in Houdini and Gobi color from Yamamoto, some Yamasenkos here. I'm gonna be using these obviously with some of the Texas rigging, along with some of the other creature baits, probably some reaction innovation, stuff like that, and then probably some Z-Man stuff. But I wanted to show this too, and part of the thing I want to talk about too is, as you start picking all this up, one thing I did this week, I built a Excel spreadsheet. I know it sounds kind of geeky, a little nerdy, maybe a little over the top, but you guys know this as well as me. As you start picking up this stuff and you don't remember if you have it, and if you're into tackle organization and just kind of putting things into places, maybe being a little OCD, stuff like that, it's really hard to keep track of all that. So I built an Excel sheet. I'm going to be putting it up on a share drive. I'm going to be creating a video kind of giving you guys a walkthrough on it, on how I think about doing and managing a lot of this stuff and how I go through the organization of it. And I think it's going to be huge value. I haven't seen anything like it out there. I'm not going to charge for it. I'm just going to throw it out there to, you know, as part of the fishing community, stuff like that, and share it. So watch for that here in a little bit. But before I move on to the hard stuff, I wanted to finish off with the soft plastics, and it's just some regular old Senkos. All right, guys, so that wraps up all of the stuff that I've picked up on the swim bait reaction, soft plastic stuff. You guys get the idea, all right? So now what I want to do is move over to the hard stuff. And what's making this is that last week, my son, when he was fishing those wacky worms and having a bunch of success with it, that's why I picked him up some more Senkos. And then I was fishing over on the other side, some of the cranks, and I could feel them hitting, but they weren't really hitting hard on them. And I was doing some of the deep stuff. I even did like offshore stuff, and I really wanted to target that area that was that shelf as they started moving off. And I either wanted them to come out from the weeds and the grass a little bit, or kind of strike up from below. And I was having some issues with that. So I'm going to move over to the strategy that I'm going to put together for the hard stuff this weekend. I'm going to start with some of the topwater stuff. Okay, so the first one is going to be a little Pop-X from Megabass. Found this one locally. I love Megabass stuff, and you're going to see some more of it here in a second. But this is the GG Bass. It's a nice little popper. I'm going to be playing with that this week at some point. And then also, if you can believe it or not, I didn't have a Super Spook from Heddon, so I picked one of them up, added that to the arsenal. Another one here from 13 Fishing is a Scamp 60. It's a topwater. I have some of the other ones that are kind of like the Louisiana Cross, stuff like that, and I've had some success in the past. I wanted to mix things up a little bit because I'm going to talk about where I'm going to put most of my efforts this weekend in those areas are. But we'll went with a blue here of all things, and I want to mix it up a little bit because I want to show these fish something that they haven't seen basically too recently. And this is one of those things. Definitely, I know I haven't fished anything like this. So this one is called Old Greg. It's like a blue craw. It's a topwater, even though it's a square bill, it's floating. All right, so this is where I'm going to spend a lot of my time this week, and it's going to be based on the fact that I threw this Jerk 110, basically this Rapala 110 in a pro blue color, which is like super bright orange on the bottom with this super shiny blue mirror color, and they were hitting the living tar out of it. And that's kind of why I went with that Scamp 60 and the blue craw as well. But the biggest thing is that they were really going for these 110 size jerk baits, and so I picked up another Rapala in like a regular old traditional minnow, and then I was shopping locally and I found some Megabass stuff, and it's super cool. And I basically picked up 3 of them because, you know, Megabass tends to be kind of expensive, and these are no exception. But I picked up some Vision 110s and a couple 110 pluses, so 3 in total. They are super, super cool looking. I'm going to cover basically the Vision 110 first, which is here in this stain reaction color. It's got the cool red eyes. It's translucent. It's got the shakers in it. And really looking forward to see how this one goes. There's a lot of very similar looking bait fish in this particular lake that I'm targeting. Excited to see how this one goes. Love the Megabass stuff. The next 2, I should say this one goes to a depth of 6 feet, so it plays right off of that ledge drop off where I started hitting it with the other jerks. So that's why I'm excited about this. And then going down to 9 feet, because these areas go down to 14, 16 feet where I want these guys to strike from. I've caught this cool one, which is kind of a, as they call it, Table Rock SP. This is the 110 plus, so it goes down to 9 feet. Again, also from Megabass, super cool looking. It's got a little bit of a chartreuse in it with a blue popper and a purple iridescent color with some translucency to it. It's the quality that you expect from Megabass. And then finally, this one here is, I think it's called a Pro Blue. Yeah, it's a GP Pro Blue. Super cool, translucent. Got blue up on the top. Has got the nice minnow and it's some iridescence on the bottom of it. I should actually pull these out of the package and show them. I might do that here in a bit, but it's some B-roll. But anyways, super cool Megabass stuff. Can't wait to see how this one goes. This is also a +1, so it's a 9-foot depth on that guy. And then finally, I wanted to get some cranks that really hit that 4 to 9 range. Again, right off that bank. I'm trying to pull these guys out. I'm trying to bring them up, see if I can't do some stuff with that. And I just wanted to mix it up and got some colors that I didn't have before. And I really picked up 2 different brands. I went with 6 Cents and Azuma from Profound Outdoors. First one, I'm going to pull these 2 Curve 55s out. What I like about these little guys is they're fat little bodies. They really get a lot of motion, the side-to-side wobble on them. And these guys both go down to that 5 to 9 foot range. Again, targeting exactly where I want to target off of those ledges and those shadows. So the 2 colors here, this one's called Shad Sense. It's a super cool, translucent, kind of iridescent kind of a color. And then I've got this one here called Ghost Missouri Craw, which has also got this translucent opacity to it. Kind of mimics some bait fishing or some of your bluegills, but it's also got a little bit of a craw pattern. There's also baby perch in this lake, so I'll be interested to see how this one goes. So those are the two curved 55s from 6 cents. And then I also picked up a C6, which then of course goes to like 4 to 8 feet. And the color on this one is called Chartreuse Spank. So it's just a variation on a chartreuse. Got a little bit more of the red and the blue, a little bit more gill action going on there. It's got your gill spots on it. So we'll see how that C6 works from 6 cents. And then finally, like I mentioned, these Azumas. So these are all square bills, and they all dive 3 to 5 feet. And I just went through with 3 more color options. I went with this really cool ghost shad, which should mimic a bunch of the stuff in there, like the bluegills, the shads, all that kind of stuff. So this should be a cool one. It's got a nice fat, wide contour, kind of like those curved 55s from 6 cents. I really like the Azuma stuff from Profound. So, yep, this one is the Square Boss, and actually it's called Casper Shad, not Ghost Shad, my bad. Casper Shad. You guys can see it there. And then picked up another one. This one is called Blazing Boss. Also 2 to 5 feet. All right. It's got some cool, like, got the gill spots, a little bit of gill on the bottom, but some iridescent shaddiness to it. And then finally, this one here is called Diggin' Chartreuse, or excuse me, Gold Digger Chartreuse. So it's got the blue action to it with some more chartreuse stuff like that. And this one also, again, 2 to 5 feet from Azuma. All right, guys, that is it for this one. It's 2 weeks of tackle dump, and yeah, there was a lot of stuff. So I got to figure out how to get all of this stuff out of the packages, organize it, optimize it, put it into my tackle work stream, which I'll create another video on, which I think you guys will enjoy. I might have a unique perspective on it from my day job on a little bit more on the tactical side, and I'll show you guys how I think about that and how I optimize. So like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified so you make sure that you don't miss that video if it's something that interests you. And then, yeah, I'm going to have a couple days of really good fishing this weekend. It's going to be hot, humid. I think the fish are going to be aggressive and nasty. If I had to hedge my bets, I'm really excited to see how these Megabass Vision 110s and 110 Pluses do. I'm excited for the Tokyo rig stuff, and I'm excited for this hardhead stuff. But nonetheless, I'm going to try it all out. I'm going to come back in a week or so. I'm going to have a ton of GoPro video. I will show you what worked, what didn't work, all of that kind of stuff. All the links to descriptions will be here. So you'll want, again, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified. I'm all self-funded. I don't get sponsored for the kind of stuff. I bought all this stuff myself as I get back into the sport. If you guys have any comments on things you'd like to see, make sure you let me know. It is Father's Day weekend. So for all of the dads out there like myself, happy Father's Day. I hope you get to spend it with your kids, your significant others, family, your wife, whoever it may be. Hope your weekend is full of fishing, fun, laughter, good food, all of that jazz. We deserve it. So that's it for this one, guys. Until next time, stay safe.